Hi everyone. I'm just making this video for you today because some tutors have expressed an interest in learning a little bit more about the BOFA platform, how it works and what data you can pull from there, as well as making sure that you give your students and families a really nice, smooth experience in your lessons. One of the things to mention is that as an agency, legally, we are no longer allowed to include subscriptions in as part of our agency costs. And so this cost now has to be agreed with the tutors and the parents. So I would suggest that you approach your parents and you mention that the student would really like to, or very much needs to, have some good familiarization with the online testing element of their 11 plus, and obviously only if they are doing a computerized test. There's no need to do that if to get a subscription if that's not the case. So bearing in mind your parent, let's imagine that your parent says, yep, that's absolutely fine, we're really happy. And you can do that, you can set up an account, whether that's right at the beginning of their journey or a little bit closer to the test. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend your entire tutoring being on the online platform. What it's really great for is making sure that they've got some familiarization, you pull some data off, you teach that data or you teach that specific skill that's a bit weak, and then you can retest and so on. So it's usually used as a teaching and assessing tool. So on your tutor profile, let's learn how to add an expense. Let's imagine that you've agreed with your parent that that's a suitable expense. You go onto your tutor profile, and on your tutor profile here, you'll find expenses. This page will pop up and you just very simply add an expense. So category is an expense, description, BOFA 11 plus or BOFA subscription. The amount, I would suggest buying one of these at a time. It does get cheaper the more you buy, but I suggest that you just do this one by one for individual clients and students. So the client, let's go for this one. And then we're going to set up, we've got a fake job set up there. Okay, so that will have charged your client the amount that's expended for the BOFA subscription. You'll receive that in your normal payroll, or sorry, not payroll, but where you get paid. So that will come to you in your payments. Obviously, you will have to pay for that first, and then you'll be reimbursed in a timely way. So let's have a look at where we land when we arrive at BOFA. So let's imagine we've just put in a search BOFA 11 plus. You can see that at the top. And this is a landing page here. So you can see that we've got 4 tabs at the top. We've got different types of tests depending on area and test type. The one that's most commonly used in Sussex and more widely now actually, but the one that we generally use is the ISCB pretest. I'm going to select that one. Now these tabs are really important because it's very easy to forget that you need to be in a particular tab and get a bit lost, or it looks like a test pack hasn't been assigned, or you don't have any students, or your students have disappeared. It's usually because you're not in the right tab. So just make sure you've got the right tab there. There are, up here, you've got lots of information here. You've got some demos, which obviously you can't get any data from, but you can use those to play around and have a look and see what the pre-tests look like. And these are quite helpful if you're just getting started, really. I'll show you at the bottom here. So at the bottom, you can change the text size. I think I already did up here. You can change the text color. You can change the background color. And this is really an important feature for perhaps a child with dyslexia or visual stress issues. And you can also make it full screen or not. So that's just to show you some of the features of BOFA there, quite good for making sure that visually students can access those. So let's come out of the demo now. and we'll go and have a look at how to set up a student in the ICB pre-test tab. I'm going to actually log into my account here, which is what you'll have once you've set up your own account with BOFA. So very straightforward to do. It's just you add a new pupil here. Very simple and straightforward. It will ask you for first name, last name. The only information you really have to put in there is a fake username. What we don't suggest is allowing your students access to the BOFA pre-test packs, because they may just go through them and just practice, but they're reinforcing something that is incorrect. So our suggestion and recommendation is to use it as an assessing tool and then use it side by side with a student during a lesson. It can be counterproductive for them to have access. They use up the packs really quickly, but they may not be practicing in the right way. They may be just reinforcing all the same mistakes. And you can see here, you'll be able to fill in your tutor details, etc. At the bottom here, there are some test options for your pupil. You can add extra time. Some of our pupils that I've worked with before, obviously being a Senko, have got 25% extra time. And these two here are really to allow you to navigate between test packs a bit more freely, rather than having to do one and then moving on to the next one. This one is about English. So in the English test, students have 25 minutes to read through the extracts and answer the questions. Perhaps when a student first starts out, then they may just want that extra time to read through that extract really carefully with you, and you might not be putting them through the timed element yet. So you can click on yes if you want them to be able to read the extract with you, and you want to perhaps analyze it or talk about it. Then you take away the timed element. Allowing pupils to see the clock, that's a personal preference. And the high test scores at the end of each stage, also a personal preference for you there. Depending on how well your student's doing, sometimes that can be motivating to some students, sometimes it can be a little bit demoralizing. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to go back to my account here. Hopefully you now know how to add a new pupil. We're going to have a look at these fake accounts here. So let's have a look at access all demo pack. Sorry, my mistake. Let's have a look at the second one down. We're going to click on add a test pack, and then quite simply here, you buy a pre-test pack. It's very simple to do that, and you usually get, for one pupil, you usually get, the minimum is 3 pre-tests. And I would suggest sticking with 3 pre-tests until you've used those up, and then you can get more if you need to. Generally, during the course of a year, 9 months, a year, 3 would probably be the right amount. Okay. The next step is you have to assign your pupil to the test pack. And unfortunately, in our agency account, we are out of test pack. So we can't actually show you that, but that is a next step to assigning your pack to a pupil. Once you've done that, you can see here, I'm going to show you with Access All Demo Pack. You can see here, you can edit student information. That's just going back to some of the information that we've just had a look at. So if you do want to play around with those test options, that's where you find them there. This button is a login as the student. So we're going to do that now. So the student will be shown the interface, which is very similar to the actual test. And we can have a look here at, let's have a look at the English, for example. So you just click onto the right subjects, and then you get all the, this isn't finished obviously, you get all the extract and you get the questions, etc. as well. So you work through that with your student or allow them to do it as an assessment. You can see you've got all 4 component parts there. And so what you need to do then is, once you've finished, is remember to log back in as yourself. So we're going to go here to switch back. And that's how you come out of the pupil account and into your own account. The next button here, and again, we are having a look at this one down here, is we can have a look at the summary report. Sorry, I will go back to a student who I know we have got some data for. Apologies. Let's hope it is this one here. Okay, so let's have a look here. We can pull out, well, actually, we can have a little look. I can't show you an actual student, but I can show you that this is the layout. So it will show you your strongest subject, the strongest subject for that particular pupil, the weakest subject. And down here, it will usually give you some targets for students' areas of weakness, and therefore you can work on those during the course of your next few weeks of tutoring. So that's quite helpful. Just going to go back here, and although we won't be able to see any data here, we can have a look at subject by subject. So this would just be the verbal reasoning, and again you can see initial tests, and where this will show you a list of targets where BOFA thinks that the student really needs to have a little look at improving on those scores. At the bottom here, each subject has got a little graph, and that's really helpful for parents because usually you would see progress going up in this direction, you would like to think. Okay, so that's a little kind of whistle-stop tour around BOFA and how to add a pupil, how to buy a pre-test pack, and what all of these buttons do. I suggest having a little play around and seeing what's there and what you find useful. Once a student has completed one of the tests, BOFA will then, if they've got any mistakes, BOFA will then walk them through some practice questions. So any that they got really wrong or just didn't get quite right, then BOFA will create some practice sessions on those particular areas. So that's really helpful too. It's just taking a while to load, but I just wanted to show you that that's a really helpful aspect of using BOFA, is that it does, it's quite intelligent in that it will show you areas of weakness that you can pull out for your own teaching, but also will retest them as well. So that's hopefully really helpful. I will just say that we aren't affiliated to BOFA. There's also Atom Learning. Just in the interest of balance and fairness, I think BOFA 11 Plus and Atom Learning are fairly similar in the way that they operate. I think Atom probably has a little bit more of a kind of fluid and flexible interface. Whereas BOFA is just one that I have known from my work with independent schools and having overseen some of the ISEB pre-tests when they first came out. Most schools use either BOFA or Atom Learning, so your student may already be a little bit familiar with one or other of those platforms. Okay, what I suggest you do from here is sign yourself up for a BOFA account and then come back to this video and revisit how to add pupils and assign packs. I'd be very happy to jump on a Zoom call with anyone if you're stuck, but hopefully this video will help you to be able to navigate and give your students a really seamless and very helpful experience of the ISEB pre-test or any 11 plus online test.